Yeah, so I just wanted to mention quickly before I start the recording that I've set up an Instagram account and I'm gonna put the link to it in the bio. Yeah, go and check it out. I'm gonna play the recording now. Cheers. Hello. Right. I wanted to talk a little bit about antidepressants, or I guess in general psychiatric medication. I wasn't sure if I was gonna record this today because my anxiety has been sky high, just heart beating out of my chest and just panicky. But I'm here, so yeah, I'm gonna talk a bit about the drugs that I've been on, and maybe if I get time, a bit about ones I've read about and researched and heard people's personal opinions on. So I think when I first sort of had my problems and I was talking to GPs and stuff, I was given Sertraline, and this is a typical antidepressant, as SSRI, which stands for serotonin serotonin reuptake inhibitor, or selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. And I think the idea is that it sort of blocks the serotonin in the synaptic cleft, so more's going into your body, into your gut, that then goes into your brain. I think I could be more knowledgeable on that if I'm honest, but that's the basis of it. And I think with sertraline you start on, I think mostly start on 25 milligrams, and then you work your way up. I think 50 is maybe the lowest sort of therapeutic dose that they say. But so I'll talk a little bit about my experience with sertraline, and it was a weird one because I stayed on sertraline for over a year. I was never sure if it was doing anything, but I'd sort of been given it and I was too anxious to make a decision. So yeah, they started me on 25. I remember getting extremely anxious, getting stomach issues. It was around New Year's Eve that I went on it, and there were sort of 3 days in the first sort of 10 days where I couldn't sleep. Like, I was having panic attacks constantly, and thinking to myself, why the fuck am I doing this? Like, this is just making me worse. I spent a lot of time on Reddit, sort of seeing other people's experiences, and what I sort of seemed to get from it was that the first 2 weeks are particularly difficult, and it's sort of a thing that while your body adjusts, you push through it, and after those 2 weeks, it settles down, and then for the following weeks after that, you might seem to see some improvement. But they say to wait up to 12 weeks before you decide that the drug isn't for you or isn't helping. So yeah, I think after about 2 weeks it sort of settled down, and I was just waiting, like, I was in a horrible position. I just wanted this feeling to go away, and it just wasn't going away. And I was sort of holding on to the fact that, oh, this drug, like, surely with psychiatric stuff there should be, if there's a drug that is given out, then it should make these feelings go away, which was just unrealistic. And unfortunately, psychiatric medication hasn't come that far yet. And if it has, like things like Xanax, which I'll talk about a bit later, then the downsides of them is quite drastic and just horrible overall, really. But they do the job. But I suppose that's sort of the problem. So yeah, I was on 50 mg, and I think we went through several times of this isn't working. So they pushed me up to 100 mg again. As I went up, I got the same sort of anxiety, the sort of panic attacks, not being able to sleep, and then it went back and I sort of normalized. I mean, when I say normalized, I mean back to the state which I felt before, which was shit still. And I think I eventually worked my way up to 150 mg. And overall, I would say about it that it was just meh. Like, if someone asked me, do you think it's helping? I'd just be like, I don't really know at all. And I've talked to a lot of other people who have gone on sertraline, and they say the exact same thing. And that doesn't mean to say that people who go on it don't find it really beneficial, because I also know people that do find it beneficial. And there's no reason you should listen to this and decide you don't want to go on it for this reason, because it might be helpful for you. There's a bit of trial and error with this sort of thing. So at some point after about a year, I think a bit more, and a couple sort of suicide attempts, which I'll talk about in other videos, my psychiatrist was like, okay, well, should we try something else? And I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, I think it's probably time. I'm pretty sure that's not done much. And he was like, okay, well, I've sort of, cause he knew that I'd done a lot of research into these psychiatric drugs, and he sort of gave me a list of things we could try out, and yeah, told me that it was sort of my decision, but he'd give me a bit of an overview about all of them. And one of the ones he came up with was Venlafaxine. So this comes under a serotonin norepinephrine, something like that, reuptake inhibitor. So sort of acts on a more adrenaline a part of your system, part of your chemicals, and I think it's sort of supposed to give you a bit more of a kick, I guess. A kick, and with people with depression who can't get out of bed, then that's sort of good. But bear in mind that my main problem was anxiety and feeling restless and restless legs. So he whacked me on this. I think I'm just gonna go back because I've completely forgotten that I was put on pregabalin about probably 3/4 of a year after being on sertraline, through being on sertraline. I'll talk about that just after this one. But so venlafaxine was, I mean, I had a horrible experience with it. So I started on, I think, 37.5, a very low dose, not considered therapeutic at all. And I was like almost manic, like I was extremely restless, just like almost shaking, this buzzing going through my body, and it was horrible. And I was trying to push through to the sort of 2 week mark, but it just wasn't getting better. It was coming on to 2 weeks. I was still horribly energized and wired, and I talked to my GP, and I was like, this is horrible. I'm not sure this is right for me. Can we either try something else, or can I go up slower? And he suggested I then sort of alternate between, I think, half of 37.5 and 37.5 each day, and then go up to 37.5. So I did that, and then that was a bit better, and then I was expected to go up to 75, the minimum therapeutic dose, and I tried again, and I just couldn't. Like, it was horrible. I had all the same stuff, and I had like horrible stomach issues as well, stomach pains, and I couldn't eat it. I had to take it straight after eating my breakfast, so I had a full stomach. Otherwise, I would feel horribly sick. And there's a story of actually when I was in hospital more recently and I wasn't able to eat due to my stomach having shrunk, but I'll talk about that another time. I took Venlafaxine, I took my medication in the morning, and I threw up all day. It was horrible. Um, yeah, so Venlafaxine for me was horrible, and I only came off it when I went into hospital in December. So during Sertraline, as I sort of mentioned, I went on a drug called pregabalin. And pregabalin it sort of works by increasing the amount of GABA in your body through the calcium channels, I think. And GABA is the chemical responsible for sort of producing calm and meaning you aren't anxious, basically. I'm sure it's more complicated than that, but that's the basis of it. Um, and I did a lot of research into pregabalin, and it scared me, to be honest. I'd already had a problem with Xanax, which was another anti-zygotic, and I was sort of seeing on Reddit and stuff with people who had gone through pregabalin withdrawal that it was sort of being compared to Xanax withdrawal and stuff like that. But I was so highly anxious and I didn't feel like there was much other choice, and I think I'd just come out of psychiatric hospital after a suicide attempt, so I felt like, yeah, I'm just gonna do it. Like, I need it now, and if it's horrible to come off in the future, then I'm gonna have to deal with that then. But hopefully I can come off it really slowly, do a taper, so drop, I don't know, 20 mg a week or something like that, and avoid the harsh withdrawals of it. So yeah, pregabalin was, I would say, the one medication I've gone on illegally obtained Xanax that was really helpful for me. I used to have bad restless legs. And that was like, I mean, if there's a scale of 1 to 10 of restless legs, 1 is just like tapping your legs, you know, people how they like bounce their legs, and 10 is extreme, like surging energy through your legs. And for me, it was connected strongly to my anxiety, so it would always set my anxiety off. And pregabalin is also prescribed for nerve pain and for restless legs. So it sort of, I think, desensitizes the nerve endings, and you don't have so much of that fizzing feeling. So pregabalin, yeah, I'm yet to try and come off it, and I'm sure it'll be difficult when I do, but it's worked really well for me, and probably been the main thing that has helped reduce my anxiety. I'm not advising anyone to go on it if you're struggling, and I'm not advising you to not. It's completely up to you, and that's like your decision. I'm not gonna, yeah, I'm just gonna tell you my experience, and this is my experience with it. Um, so this takes me to the most recent antidepressant that I've been on, and there's alongside this propanalol, which I'll talk about briefly after this. I think with Xanax and Valium, I'm going to put into another video because they were an addiction I had, and yeah, they weren't like prescribed to me, so I'll talk about them in another video. But yeah, Mirtazapine. So when I was in hospital, about like a few days before coming out, I was able to talk to a psychiatrist, and I basically said to them that this Venlafaxine is horrible. I've been being sick all day. I don't think this is a drug for me at all. I really want to switch. And they came up with Mirtazapine, which is, got it in front of me. It's an NASSA, which is a noradrenergic and specific serotonic antidepressant, and it's also got antihistamine properties. So this drug, they told me that on the lower sort of doses, it's really good for sleep. It's also prescribed for women with morning sickness, and it's supposed to be a bit better for your stomach and everything. And that was one of the biggest problems I was having with Venlafaxine. And that I might feel more sort of dopey, a bit more tired for a week or two, and that my hunger would increase massively. At the time, I was skinny as fuck in hospital. I was recovering from certain things, which I'll talk about in other videos. And I needed to eat, and I hadn't been eating at all, and so I was like, yes, give me it. Why has no one suggested this before? Sounds like it's the drug for me. So I started taking Mirtazapine. I got the best night's sleep that night, and I started eating everything. The shitty hospital food they gave me was gone. Like, the plates were polished and the bowls were polished. It was definitely a good time for me to go on that drug. They said that for anxiety, yeah, staying on a lower dose is best because it's sort of a bit more sedating, and the higher doses, that sedating property sort of reduces. So yeah, I went on that drug, and so it's now March, 19th of March, and I went on this drug in December, and it was around the same time that I went sober, so it's hard for me to say what it did for me in terms of benefits, but I definitely noticed my mood getting better, and I mean that could have been due to being sober. I mean, it's quite likely that had a play in it, but also possibly due to Mirtazapine. But yeah, I'm still on Mirtazapine today. I still take it every night, 15 mg. I haven't had to increase yet. But yeah, I had a good experience with it. I have seen that other people on it have experienced weight gain and problems like that. I'm a fairly lean teenager, so it's not been so much of a problem for me, and I would say if that is the biggest problem for you, but it's helping, then try and look for other ways, like eating healthy or implementing some exercise each day to try and reduce those effects. Because yeah, otherwise, that apart from that, I think it's a good antidepressant, and it's worth noting that in studies and clinical trials and stuff, it's done better for helping people improve from depression and anxiety than SSRIs and SNRIs, which is sort of odd that it's not prescribed as the first thing. But I'm yet to experience trying to come off it. I don't know how that'll be. It's worth noting actually with Sertraline that obviously I had to come off it, and the withdrawal was it wasn't great. Like, I felt like I was ill, quite depressed, but it would only last sort of 3-4 days, and at the time I was doing a lot of ketamine, so I was all sort of ups and downs and everything. So I'd say with antidepressants that I wouldn't be so worried about coming off them if it is what you feel like, if you need the helping hand for that moment, for that period of time. You don't have to stay on antidepressants forever. Some people do stay on them for a very long time, but it's not a necessity, and don't think of it as, I mean, a lot of people talk to me and they're like, oh, once I'm relying on it, that's it, like I'm a slave to the drug, that kind of thing. And I wouldn't think of it like that. I would think of it as you need a bit of a foot up and a helping hand to get you through it, and then you can come off it and you can carry on with your life. I think that's the best way of thinking about it. Just gonna discuss propanalol quickly, beta blockers. Originally I wasn't able to be prescribed these due to first degree heart block that I have, and they work on the heart. They basically work by slowing down the heart, so people who have anxiety symptoms such as heart racing and like their adrenaline is just pumping out. It basically it blocks the production of, or decreases the production of adrenaline, so it stops that excess adrenaline going into your body. So most people I know who are on them for anxiety prescribe 40 mg. At first I was prescribed 10 mg to see how it was with my heart, and then I had an ECG to see if it was okay, and it was fine. So they carried on, and I basically now get 20 mgs once a day, but I'm allowed to take up to 30 mg as needed. So I take them probably once a week on average. So I don't take them daily at all, but I find that it's a bit hit and miss really. One time I can take them when I'm really panicky, and it can completely cut out the panic, which is nice. Another day I can take them and it can make no difference. So yeah, that's sort of my experience with the drugs that I've been on: an SSRI, an SNRI, and an NASSA, and beta blockers and pregabalin. There's obviously lots of other SSRIs. I've heard that Sertraline or something like that is quite a good one for anxiety. But it's very dependent on the individual case. Like, it's very dependent on the individual person. And unfortunately, quite a lot of the time, it's trial and error that you have to try, and if it doesn't work for you after, say, 10 weeks, then you can try a different one. And often GPs and psychiatrists will do that with you, because unfortunately it's a guessing game. They don't know how it's going to personally react with you. But the important part is that alongside that, you're improving your life in other ways. Like, you're trying to eat healthy, trying to get exercise, you're trying to, I guess, expand your horizons, take up a hobby or something. So yeah, don't think of us as a antidepressant drug as I'll be put on it and then all my problems will go away, because that often isn't the case. It's just a helping hand, as I say. Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the people who commented on my last video, and the people who liked it. I hope that it was interesting. I got some good feedback from it. And yeah, I hope this video is useful. I'm going to put in the descriptions the times at which I start talking about each drug, so that people can skip to where they want to skip, and see what I have to say about it. So yeah, thanks for listening, guys, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do a next video on yet, but I think might be something. I might do sort of like 5 important things to do when you're trying to overcome anxiety, or improve or improve your mood or whatnot. So yeah, I'll see you guys then.